There's some trade movement this week. Finally, I am going to go for the double and just try to get a decent score this week because I've got 3 out there with Cotter, with Drinky, and with Watson as well. So I do want to try and make a bit of a move this week. I don't own, Carrigan, Yo, Murray, these types of gun mids, and mid's been a position I have been struggling with. So with Watson out, with Cotter out, I want to short that up a little bit. And a few of them obviously cover different positions, which is nice too, with Watson in hooker, Plath with half, Colin Matangi with edge, along with Willison. So we are going to do a little bit of looping this week, which will be fun. And that'll help us make our decisions because I've got 18 players now after 2 trades, leaving me with 1 trade to go. I'm helping myself out for next week, considering I think it will be a bit of a tougher one in going Fainu out early. So Fainu and Cleary go out. Sorry, yeah, that's right. Fainu and Cleary go out. Carrigan and DC are going to come in. I'm not going to make any crazy moves. I'm going to get pretty stock standard. These guys aren't tremendously high owned, and they will be after this week, that's for sure. And I'm going to add to that. The big thing is obviously if with a lot of people not having a heap of trades, it's going to be hard to get both. So if you look at footy stats at the moment, with trade-ins, obviously DC's at 3.28 and Carrigan's at 1.77. They're good bring-ins, but it's not going to change their stats just, absolutely dramatically. Like 15% owned top 1,000, 20% top 100. Like it's gonna change a little bit, but it's not going to get over 50% or anything like that with those kind of numbers. And Pat's at 32.5%. He'll get up over 50 or something like that. So it's not a complete full ownership, and it's just a cookie cutter, follow the lead. If you have these guys and they do well, you will make ranks, basically, is what I'm saying with that one. So Cleary and Fainu go out, Carrigan and DCE come in, and I'm expecting Carrigan and DCE both to play really good minutes all 3 of the games. If they don't, it's just unlucky, and they both very, very, very good at keeping themselves on the park. So leaving myself with 1 trade, that's a big thought in my head, is to make sure I can try and get guys that will play every single one of those weeks and have the highest chance of not getting injured and of playing those games. That's the big one, obviously, with those trade-ins there. And when we're looking at next week, that's my worry. So Blore and Hughes, potential for restings. We have Roosters, Tedesco, a chance of resting as well. We're not sure what other teams are going to do in round 26. Are they going to do anything in round 27? All questions we need to work out there on that one. So I thought with Fainu and Galvin going to be out for me next week as Tigers, I want to get ahead of that trend and remove another guy that's not scoring super well in Fainu and improve my score this week. And hopefully it helps me next week anyway. Like if I'm trading him to Carrigan or him to DCE, then both this week I can get a better score. And then next week when I have a few guys out, I'd get a better score from it anyway. And if I do have injuries and stuff, I've already made up a bit of that ground that I might have lost because of the injury. And if there's no injuries, then I get the benefit this week and obviously next week and the following with those guys coming in and scoring better than what Fainu would have been. And with 3 out anyway this week, trading that extra guy, it probably likely does net me 20, 30, 40 points, which is awesome and exactly what we want with 3 rounds to go. And lucky to have some trades. Haven't used any the last 3 weeks, but using 2 this week puts me in a good spot. And I am going to captain Carrigan. I'm going for safety. I'm trying to get as good of a rank as possible. And, I'm not here like, oh, go hard or go home at this point of the season for myself. It is about rank conservation. It's about getting in that sort of top 250, 200. I think if I can get to top 200, that'll be the goal. It is another 100 points or so away, which is fine. But that's my goal there, to go 101st, like top 200, and then go top 200 again, back to back, would be pretty cool from where I started the season. So that's my goal here, is not to go too risk on and get myself in a good spot. But if we're looking at players this week, the main guys that I have a little bit of a worry for is Blore. We think that he could easily go 30s. We have Greg Marzhew, who could go anywhere as well, but a pretty solid matchup against the South this week. I think he should be fine. We have Willison and we have Starling. So Willison there could go anywhere between sort of a high 20s to like a 47 where he scores a try, or a 50, like we saw there with good minutes with Pat and also Haas out. We have Starling that's gone back-to-back 30s, and he is up against the Panthers. So I'm going to loop Starling straight up. You do see I have obviously Watson that can go into the hooking slot there if I do want to muck around with some looping there. My only worries I haven't thought about this yet is if I put Watson into that spot there, I might be in a bit of strife to try and get a player in, don't I? So I might have to go a little Willison up, Starling up one, just to get that sorted to make sure I can get it. I haven't sorted out the complete looping sequence yet, but basically I'm going to try and do some looping with Starling, and it might just have to be in my interchange rather than in the starting side, and that's okay there for sure. So Willison's the next guy on the list I want to do some looping with. So in this scenario, I could actually muck around with having Willison at 7. Yeah, that's going to be the better play, actually. There you go. Learning on the job. So Willison at 7, I have no mids in front, but if I was to muck around with some mids, I can go Colin to switch with Cotter, for example, and then I just switch Blore with Colin, and there I have another edge on my bench, and then Willison would be the loop. There you go. So Willison's going to be 7, Starling's going to be 6 for me this week, because if things work out with that, I have 3 guys that I could use as loopers in Drinky, Watson, and Cotter. In that scenario here, I'd take Willison's score at number 7, and Colin would be my edge. So there you go. That's the looping sequence for this week. And then I have Blore to loop in number 5 if I'd like to, but they obviously do play a little bit later in the week in game number 5, but that follows Raiders obviously there. So that's the Storm game against the Finns will be in that 5th slot of the week. So yeah, pretty easy on that front. They're the guys I'm a little bit worried about. I think Gray against the Knights should be pretty fine. But yeah, we can make some decisions there. He could be a guy to move out. I think everyone else is pretty solid in that 17 there. Even guys like Iro after the illness, Jerome Hughes, pretty confident with all those guys. So I still think with having the couple of trades, being able to move on from Cleary, anyone who has trades should be able to make some ranks over the next 3 weeks. So that's the plan. Get back in the top 300, around pretty close to where I was at the back before last week. At 264 would be nice, and then over the last 2 rounds, get back to 232 and then finish in the top 200. That's my goal. I'm going pretty solid with Carrigan. He has a 64 average without Haas. We'll just lock and load with him and see what happens, and hopefully DCE goes big. He plays in the first game, so make sure you put the vice captaincy on him or Galvin or someone from that first game, even Garrick or something like that could work out as well. Turbo, a really good captaincy option. There's plenty of those guys that you could muck around with. But that's my team heading into this week. And obviously it's not a head-to-head team, but the head-to-head games I'm looking at, it's the Blake Taft Shield there up against Eddie actually in second there. So for me, that puts us into the prelim of the top 4. So that's good. Of the top 8, sorry. And then the grand final. We'll see what happens after that. So at least one head-to-head in this comp that I'm looking forward to pushing forward in. But I'm 15th in the private group, and my goal will be to get to 10th. And we'll see how we go and obviously win the Podcasters League. That's the goal there. So I'm 55 ahead of Nick, and hopefully I can continue to hold or push ahead in that one. Let's moving on to my SuperCoach side, and just one trade right now. I'm going to leave 2 for next week. I think it's probably going to be the play. Just looking at my squad, the main thing I would probably do is change my hooker. But Brayley's up against the South, and there's a chance that he scores somewhere around the 68 again, whether it's a try assist, good base stats. I think he's going to be fine. Really, I'd want to move on to like a little, but can I make a bit more of a splash next week with the potential for restings? Could I use those 2 trades for that week or even in round 27 to make some big moves there? And there are guys that we could grab. Obviously, in the center wing position, we could make a bit of an upgrade to get a Karaz or something like that. But I do think the grouping of Garrick against Tigers there, Iro's back, McLean's up against the Raiders, Greg Marzu against the South. I think that they can do a good one this week, and I'm going to captain Turbo. So Cleary goes out. I am going to bring in DCE. I just think he has the highest upside just for this week alone, which is what we're looking for. I've got Turbo, got Garrick, I've got DCE. Hopefully they can go nuts in this game against the Tigers, and that'll be sweet. And I've got guys as cover in Curran, in Kaipis Paul. Isaac Tungo, I'm not going to play. I'm going to go McLean over Tungo for once. Watch Isaac score 100 in this one. That'll be pretty funny. But just that hooker position with Watson out that might not be great, because last time I played Brayley, he picked up a 28, unfortunately, there. So that's the SuperCoach squad. 415 in the bank for some upgrades over the next few weeks, and just hopefully get ourselves back closer to, inside the 2,000. We just want to beat last year's score of just out of like 2,050, 2,100 or whatever it was, we're out to 2,800 now, so we want to push back into that slot. And I think we can, leaving 2 trades for the last 2 games. If there is a bit of carnage with restings and stuff, that will suit my side, and I'll be able to get ourselves in a good spot. And even that last round, people might play short, and I'll be able to pounce there on them in that one. So let's move to the fantasy head-to-head side now as some big matchups. So one trade for us, I think with it being a very important head-to-head week myself, I just want to get the best player available, and that's Isaiah Yeo. Finally, he comes in, he's going to be the captain. Pretty excited by that one for sure. Obviously don't have Turbo, don't have a DCE. These types of players in here could make a difference this week, and I do have Garrick, which is going to be fun as well. I'm actually going to leave Garrick on the interchange just for that coverage, that we were worried about. For sure, he obviously does help the wing fullback coverage if I'm not too excited by a Blaise Talangi against Brisbane this week. So he helps on that front, especially with the wing fullback slot there. So I'm going to leave him on there just for that reason. I do have 3 out this week: Drinkwater, Sipley, and then Ruben Cotter. But it was all about trading Cleary, getting in the gun, and putting ourselves in a good position there. I haven't looked at looping in this head-to-head side yet, but I'll lock that in over the rest of the afternoon and make sure that's all set. But I've got a few things to do, so I want to get out this video as quick as I could for all of you guys. And obviously guys like Reed Marnie, Josh Curran, not in the perfect spot right now, but when I'm taking 18 players, it's really only the big loop of players like Starling, of Reed potentially, but also Howarth and Talangi. And in terms of the looping scenario, I can't loop Reed through the hooking position. I would just have to play one of the 2 guys in Starling or Reed, and then loop the other one basically. So we can have a little play around with doing that, because the Dogs play the second game of the week. So let's just say we mucked around with that, which would be fun, and put Reedy in number 5 just to kick things off, and we'll see how he plays, and we can move around with that position there. We've got Howarth and Talangi, I think, are the highest chance of guys that could be left out. Obviously, Talangi against the Broncos, Howarth against the Finns, I think is a pretty good matchup for him. But the rest of the guys in our grouping, Pong is a really good one to own this week. Obviously, don't have Turbo, but Pong is great. And we can do some bits and pieces with the looping in that scenario. But as I said, likely to be one of Howarth, Reed, or Blaise Talangi that sits out of this side, and the rest are going to be playing and hopefully putting ourselves in a good position to win my head-to-head. So I have a prelim here. Grand final, actually, I should say, for the Serrato Sucks League. I'm not sure if he sucks anymore, but Serrato Cucks. They changed it. It was Serrato Sucks. There you go. He's much better now. League of Legends, we own the grand final of that as well. So I've made 2 grand finals there, which is awesome. Liam's League, we're in the prelim, which is good fun. Very, very good. So that'll be a fun little matchup in that one. And then we have the next one here. We've got, what are we, second in that one. So we end up in the prelim. So absolutely doing great, guns. We've missed out on a couple, obviously. Kings Cup, we missed out on. The Amateurs League, we missed out on. And the Sweat Lobby, we're up against All Out NRL Fantasy in the prelim for that as well. So, 5 matchups in the top, being in the top 8, which is awesome. Missed out on a couple of my leagues there. The Gargarov, the Kings Cup, and the Amateurs League. So missing 3 out of 8, I think is pretty solid. And it's an important week for us this week to get into that grand final, leaving 1 trade for next week, and not a tremendous amount of guys that could be missing out without sitting there with a Fainu, for example. I do have Galvin, who's going to miss out next week, and then I'm not sitting here with any of Jerome Hughes. Do have Tedesco, but guys like Hughes could be rested next week. Unsure about Howarth, and these guys are missing out on Sipley just not being in the side, but maybe he ends up back in the team next week. We'll see how that plays out, and then Drinkwater and Cotter returning next week, which will be fun. So that's the trades video for the week, guys. Actually made trades this week, which is fun and scary as always. But I wish you guys all the best of luck with your final trades if you're at that point, or if you're here just watching and you don't have any trades. Good luck this week, and if you're here for strategy, legends, we'll catch you in that next video tomorrow.